Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
Welcome back, guys. So yesterday, in case you missed it, over on HeartZone, we did a Galactic Federation message. This is something that they've been bugging Cindy to get across the last couple days. So go check out HeartZone. It's over there. Again, HeartZone is the newest channel, and it does have a unique subset of playlists. Now, before that, during the day, we did a Patreon exclusive, and it was called Warning Alert. What the bleep is going on? As you can tell, it has something to do with DNA and modifications. Okay. Yeah, that was an interesting one. We want to thank our newest patrons.
Yes, we want to say a huge thank you to Jen, Jennifer, and Victoria. Thanks, you guys.
Welcome to the family. I thank you guys so much for your support. We couldn't do it without you guys. So it is June 6th, 662024. And it is the anniversary of D-Day. As you look at these faces, many of whom seem like they should still be in school or something, again, so young. D-Day was an invasion of Normandy. It was a counter push and kind of marked the beginning of the final period of WW2. The stats this person gives is 90% of the soldiers on the first boats didn't live to see the end of the day. Yeah, it was absolutely one of the more brutal battles that you can imagine in the 20th century. Incredible, especially when we look back and realize now what we realize now, but we didn't really know back then. This was truly in the Kali Yuga, and I think hardly anybody had a clue at this point in time to the level of manipulation going on the planet.
Yeah, I think many people were living lives basically, probably maybe very gratuitous, I can't say the word, lives full of gratitude because maybe they were not going off to war, or maybe somebody just came back to war. They were kind of getting into the swing of understanding the family unit and processes and what it means to start a tradition. So I think those times were very, very different inside the human heart.
Yeah, it was absolutely a different time. And yet, right now, here we are in perhaps the last days, weeks, or months before that third WW, and we have another barge incident with bridge. Absolutely, a vessel says it lost control temporarily. This is the Ravenel Bridge. This is over in Charleston, South Carolina. There's a massive military base over in this area. It's not uncommon to see military planes go directly overhead. This is also a key location. As you see, this is a video that may show that, or it may show a different barge. We're not sure. But somebody did take this video. So the vessel reported losing propulsion and lost control thus of how to control its movement. And you got to wonder, was it hacked? Was simply this another time that a vessel has been taken over and hacked? And Sita thinks so. She really does. She just wants to get her two cents in. This right here is where this bridge is, as you can see, coming over from Mount Pleasant into Charleston. It's the third longest bridge of its construction kind in the Western Hemisphere, and 17 is a beautiful ride. If you've never done it, I would recommend doing 17 between Wilmington and going down Savannah. It's key as far as movement along the coastline. We've seen a lot of very, very suspicious activity. This, I think we should take in the same way. Israel struck Lebanon. Israeli warplanes launched a series of airstrikes all throughout southern Lebanon. So, nothing is slowing really down there. It's just a continuation of more of the same, as they are doing their very best to turn everything into WW3. And when Israel, this quote is talking about the first hospital being bombed in Gaza, the world, maybe was more likely to believe it was a misfired rocket from Hamas. But now every single hospital in Gaza has been destroyed. So, again, it's the fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. As the world is waking up to, another perhaps go round of what we saw in 2020, which we'll touch on. And here you have, under Israeli police protection, hundreds of Zionists, quote unquote, settlers. Again, this is coming out of TRT Africa. Stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound. And there were some pushing and shoving going on, and it felt like, again, just trying to start that war, trying to see how far they could push a group until, it just turns into abject chaos. Because, again, what has happened ever since the original attack that led to the Gaza Strip military operation, which has now led to pretty much the entirety of the Gaza Strip being kind of turned to rubble, 2 million people uprooted. Yeah, it feels like this is only just the beginning, and the beginning of an expansion phase led by a certain group, again, that feels it's very, very much above the law, and at the same time trying to get others to strike back in a bigger way. Russia is deploying air and sea assets for military exercises in the Caribbean. Venezuela, Cuba, perhaps Nicaragua will all take part. And if they are going to be in Cuba, again, you're only 90 miles away from Florida. This is under preparations now, and it's for exercises in the coming weeks. With all the tension and everything going on right now, this would be support for an attack on the U.S., in my opinion. This is absolutely the pretext that you would have. Now, it could turn out it's just another military exercise. Maybe even they, again, move this equipment out of the area and focus it somewhere else. Or maybe they leave it in the area, or maybe this is preparation for the bigger war.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we'll have to see. It's a very sensitive time right now in June. So we're just kind of watching and looking and staying prepared as best as we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Sudan is not one of the places that makes it into the news on a regular basis here in the U.S., but you do have entire villages that are being burned down. If we knew and kept track of, if more people knew, I should say, and kept track of exactly how much all these smaller countries, or countries of less significance in some ways, military, economically, are utilized and do have continual warfare going on that is, affecting and destroying lives, and also cementing in a hatred of one group against another, and is caused by the alphabet soups of the world, whether it's on our side with CIA, and et cetera, or whether it's caused by a different group, perhaps from Russia or China. This is just simply what they do, because ultimately they're all about controlling through division. It's that Genesis 11 Tower of Babel thing. This is Dutch Sense saying Northern California looks odd to me. He doesn't think it's an eruption, but you could see there's all of a sudden what appears to be smoke coming out of a few areas. This area in particular, hits me, as it's not too far away from Shasta, which again, one of the visions on one of the timelines that we had was of the timing of the war coinciding with some sort of volcanic activity that we interpreted to be our own Pacific Northwest. It's curious because what you're looking at here is a lot of quakes, and some of these quakes are relatively shallow, 0.7. They're all pretty shallow, 0.7 of a kilometer, 1 kilometer, 0.9, 0.9. Gotta wonder, is there some magma movement going on? 33 quakes in one week. If you can't tell, this is a caldera. And so what are we looking at here? There's Spirit Lake. So we go over to Google Earth and you can see it's Mount St. Helens. Spirit Lake. Is Mount St. Helens potentially getting ready to go again? Or will Mount Rainier or Mount Adams or Mount Shasta go? We'll have to see. But there has been periods of heightened volcanic activity on the planet, as Kilauea did go again. And then we had, of course, all the eruptions going on up in Iceland, and the scare going on over in Italy, wondering if a supervolcano is waking up as well.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on, and several people picking up that June was the timeline. So we'll have to see. And then, unfortunately, I don't think it's a good idea to totally let the guard down even after June. I think we all just need to continue on with our preps and keep that going in the background. Keep yourself kind of muddling along and staying prepared in the background and living your life as best as you can, because, well, I mean, you don't want to miss out on life while you're preparing for something. It's just that if you don't prepare for a big change, that's where it could be devastating for your whole family and your loved ones. If something does happen, it would be really, really bad, really bad. You just don't want to be caught off guard. So a lot of people picked up on June being a timeline. The other psychic that we watch, he picked up on June, and some others too, saying June is like a really big month to be kind of keeping an eye out.
Yes, absolutely. This one's relatively recent, 5.9 Sea of Okhotsk. This is off the coast of Russia, but this is 622 kilometers deep. That's extremely deep. So using the logic Dutch sense would always give us, you can expect something a full magnitude bigger. So that would mean perhaps up to a 7. Along the energy transfer zones, which would be along the plate edges. So, over towards Alaska or perhaps back down towards Japan. Be aware of the potential for like a 7.0. Now, this did not work out with what we saw in the last round. And that's what really, really feels weird, because the logic that Dutch has used for years has been pretty accurate in predicting quakes, and yet it didn't really bear out, say in the last month or two, which makes me feel there's something unusual going on, whether it's technology unusual or whether it's Mother Nature trying not to react, like trying to hold a sneeze. It feels kind of like that. There's been some swarms down in California, but you get those swarms that ebb and flow. Right now that's settled down, but if you go back to look at the last week, you could see there was a decent swarm down there below Mexicali. Swarming going on in several areas up towards Ridgecrest and all. And then we still have, it won't let go, those quakes in New Jersey. They're still going on. This has been very, very weird and curious, by the Trump golf course. I only say that half jesting. As you still have in the last 30 days, 20. And before that, if we had any way of going back to last year, you probably would see at this point somewhere around 250 quakes. I would venture maybe 300 in New Jersey. That's just plain old weird.
It is. A lot of activity going on, and a lot of patterns being missed or mixed around. So we'll have to keep an eye on that too. Just something, I do feel like earthly energy. I'm not feeling lasers from the sky like I have in the past. So I don't know if she's being tapped from the inside, or if it is just her own internal mechanisms trying to hold things steady.
Well, that that very weird vision of an ET that I had over there in the Middle East, and it felt like he was either in Israel or in Lebanon, and it felt like there was a quake that happened in the vision, but somehow this being absorbed the energy to lessen the blow. And I do remember you saying something like you were picking up on something like that. So maybe interference from some of the benevolent beings like the Galactic Federation, to mitigate what would be already perhaps catastrophic changes.
Right. Well, if there is a type of interference that's to be allowed, karmically speaking, they're going to do it. If there's a way that they can do it without interrupting the flow of human consciousness, if there is a way to absorb a very large earthquake and help without hindering, that's what they're going to do. The rule that they follow, that they live by, that they won't waver from, is non-interference of the human consciousness. That is so very, very, very important to them. It's everything, because it's about us kind of crawling on our own, walking on our own, running on our own. You don't raise a child and then keep them from doing one of those steps, because as a parent, you know how vital and critical it may be, even though that child may be having trouble walking or riding a bike, and there's tears in their eyes. They're like, "Mommy, I need help." You know that there's a part of them that absolutely has to do that for themselves. I mean, muscles need to be strengthened, balance needs to be gained. So hopefully there is something there where the benevolence or the Galactic Federation was able to step in and absorb that without hindering us.
And yes, here you go. The WHO warns a new strain of bird flu has jumped to humans. You have Deborah Burke saying we have to test every cow in the country every single day. I kid you not, and you have a man in Mexico that was 59 that tested positive. They say before dying from it, although, his health was not good. And, there's a lot of other factors you could look to. Again, fool me once, fool me twice. This is different on this timeline. It does feel like the timeline has shifted to some degree. I do think, again, predictions, prophecies, they're so hard to come through on an accurate timing. But, again, we are in that timing right now. We're in the thick of it, of what the guides had given us 18 months ago. Because it was right about 18 months ago that they said 1.5 years on that timing. This was December of 2022. That on the timeline that we were on, it looked like the war really breaks out, and there is volcanic activity going on somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Now, it does feel like we've nudged it, and it's always been a numbers game to shift the paradigm of the planet. You need to shift a lot of minds. This is why we've not let go of covering what the dark matrix is doing, because simply, like, without awakening more people, and this awakening is exponential. So, say one video awakens 50 new people. Those 50 new people, in turn, each awaken 2 people. You get the progression. This is how things work. And so while we could have in some ways just talked about the things that we love and raise vibrations, it would not have awakened enough minds to maybe shift into a new paradigm. So this is why we continue to dive back into the darkness of the news. And at the same time, now is the time to cultivate the light within to a much higher degree for those that are awakened. And this is why we've also now at this point started to shift our focus more to the heart's own material. Because yes, we will get to a certain point in time in which that delineation between those that are going to wake up and those that just aren't going to, those that will stay in more of a 3D existence for subsequent incarnations and won't step into 4D or even 5D reality. Well, there's going to be a demarcation point where we kind of split. And I think most people that are channeling the same information and are working again to awaken the planet do see this split coming. We'll talk more about that again in upcoming videos, and we have talked about it in the past, as it's really fascinating. It's a fascinating subject, and for some that's the number one topic. What does that split look like? Again, we'll try to get more clarity and share that with you. Turkmenistan might not be the place that you have on the top of your list for a vacation area, but it is interesting. When I looked at some of the stuff that they've built out there. In fact, there are some cities in what used to be part of the former Soviet Union, which now are independent countries, like Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. All these areas, they're not too well known, but you might be blown away by some of the architecture and actually some of how the cities themselves are so incredibly clean, incredibly organized. Now there's some significance here, and I gotta wonder, as I've looked at certain rates of ouchies, yes, on countries around the globe, and these are some of the lowest in the world. And so are these designated to be maybe new centers, new points of focus, new metropolises in the next era? Are they slated to escape all the chaos and destruction?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you go back and you watch some of those pictures, those aerials that they photographed, it certainly looks like a computer chipboard, something that's going to pull in energy, pull in consciousness. And so many of these sites, including Washington, D.C., and others, it was very important when they started building. They went by Vedic astrology. They went by Vedic astrology to lay the first brick, to absorb as much energy as possible and bring in their own magic, so that magic can then create a wave over the consciousness of people. In the beginning, it was meant for good purposes. Unfortunately, that magic it's taken minds in a darker direction because there was a different energy taken over. But I do believe that this is something very, very similar, where they have created it in alignment or accordance to Vedic astrology, to give them power over the area, power over the energy, so that when they do create their rituals, they're more powerful, and they hold those minds, they collect those minds, and those minds aren't able to look here, to look there. They're just under a spell, just under like a God spell, where they can't see anything different. I mean, it looks beautiful, it looks great, but something like the Vatican keeps coming to my mind. So I don't know.
Yeah, if I just share with you what I feel is, I feel this is a place that they're knowingly not going to interfere with, that probably will not get touched by any sort of bombs or destruction, that will not be mud flooded. I think this is going to be an area of importance in the future for the system, is ultimately what I'm feeling. Again, they're going to change their locale of operation focus. We could see that. They're saying goodbye to the old way, the old places. They're saying goodbye to Rome. I think they're saying goodbye to the British Empire and the U.S. Empire. And I think the Middle East is going to have a renewed focus on it. And also perhaps these areas, which these are some of the areas in which humanity survived the last cataclysm. And here you have these two young, rams in training already showing the world that they're going to butt heads. And I guess they're fighting for position next to mom in a gentle way at this point. Let's see if we could get more gentle resolution in this world.
I think that's a great idea.
As always, guys, thanks for being part of the family. We love you guys, and we appreciate your support.
Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.